This morning, she was standing outside my apartment in tears. As the youngest child in a family of 8, I was the only one who never got an F or a D on my report card. Teachers would always tell me I was gifted. And whenever my parents tried to push my siblings into not being useless slobs for once, they'd always say the same thing. It's okay. We got Michelle. And maybe this should have pissed me off, but it didn't. Because I wanted the same thing as them, to be the provider. So I let it motivate me to work harder. And by the time I was graduating high school, I had a 5.0 GPA and was on track for a scholarship to attend a really good university. And even though I worked a really terrible minimum wage job, I was still sending 70% of my paycheck home every week. Because all of my siblings were still living with my parents, sharing bedrooms and bunk beds. So when I got my first real job, I was stoked. I even managed to rent my own apartment and invited my entire family over for the holidays. They were all congratulating me and looked proud. Well, more like relieved, but still, we were happy. I took the turkey out of the hot oven and plopped it down on my red and white checkered tablecloth. And as we sat down, one of my sisters, Tracy, spoke. She told me she was getting married soon. I was just about to run and give her a hug, but then her face suddenly turned very sheepish. She started scraping the peas around the plate with her fork. But I already knew what was coming. Tracy, of course I'll pay for your wedding. Her eyes widened with excitement. Wait, are you serious? I nodded, and she was beaming like a kid on Christmas. I joked about how I wasn't going to plan it though. The whole table broke out into laughter, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Looking back, I should have known something dark was going to happen. But at the time, you could literally feel everyone's spirits being lifted. When the banks reopened, I knew she was going to ask for $5,000, so I took out a check for $13,000 and mailed it to her. Me and my family had spent our entire lives struggling, wondering if we were going to go to bed hungry. For once, I just wanted us all to be happy, and it made her happy all right. Every day that week, she'd call and remind me how grateful her and her husband were for what I did. Turns out, that was the calm before the storm. Fast forward 8 months later, when the day finally arrived, the entire family were in formal wear, thanks to yours truly. And we looked like the picture-perfect family we always joked about, the one we always thought was out of our reach, and I knew it was money well spent. Then came the toast. Tracy started off her speech with how grateful she was to her job for letting her be able to afford all of this. I froze for a second, but then I decided if she wanted to take the credit, then she could. Because after all, it was her day, not mine. But then she continued. As you can see, all of my beautiful family came to join me. That's when her finger pointed at me. Even Michelle, aka our family leech. The entire crowd laughed and I stiffened slightly. Not sure if I should break my poker face. I mean Michelle, after all the money you borrowed from me, I'm surprised you even have time to come. By this point, everyone in the crowd was laughing so hard I could see their belly fat vibrating. I glanced at my family, who looked even more confused than me. I guess family really does stick together, and the freeloaders are no exception. Rage crawled up my spine. But before I could say anything, my sister Tina butted in. Hey, Tracy. Thank you for all this. Where is it you said you work again? She proceeded to give the name of my role, and that's when Tina started pressing her. You see, she was the only one in the family who listened when I spoke, so she knew what questions to ask to catch her in her lie. By the end of their extremely public interrogation, her face went hot and her mouth couldn't keep up. I looked down at the ground to hide the smile creeping in. Her husband stepped in when he realized the jig was up, and made a joke about how the alcohol was getting to her. It was an alcohol-free event. I assumed it was just some petty sibling bicker, that it was over. But for the rest of the night, Tracy was giving me the silent treatment, accompanied by sharp dirty looks. I tried not to think about it and instead focused on enjoying the wedding that I had paid for. But the next day, I woke up to a text from my boss. I called her immediately. Michelle, glad you called. Look, I got a concerning email last night, Dana said, her voice unusually serious. Someone claiming to be your sister sent screenshots of what looks like you sharing confidential client information on social media. I sat up straight, fully awake now. What? That's impossible. I would never do that. I know, which is why I wanted to talk to you first. The screenshots look doctored to me, but HR is already involved. They're launching an investigation tomorrow. My mind was racing. Can you forward me the email? Dana sent it over. And sure enough, there were screenshots of what appeared to be my social media accounts, sharing sensitive financial information about our biggest client. Except I'd never posted anything like that. The screenshots were obviously fake. The font was slightly off, and they'd misspelled my username. But they were convincing enough to cause trouble, and the email was definitely from Tracy. She'd used her personal email address, which included her full name. I called Tracy immediately. No answer. I texted her. I know what you did. Call me now. 3 hours later, she finally called back. What's your problem? She asked. Like I was the one who'd done something wrong. I explained that I knew about the fake screenshots and asked her what the heck she was thinking. Her response made my blood run cold. You think you're so much better than the rest of us, don't you? Golden girl Michelle with her fancy job and apartment, always making us look bad. Well, now you know how it feels to have your life messed with. Tracy, you could get me fired. Over what? Because I paid for your wedding? That's exactly it. I didn't ask you to pay for everything. You just swooped in like some big hero, making me look like I couldn't provide for my own husband. Do you know how embarrassing that is? I was speechless. She was mad at me for helping her. And then at Thanksgiving, everyone was fawning all over your apartment and your job. Michelle this, Michelle that. Mom even asked why I couldn't be more like you. On my engagement day. I had no memory of this happening, but it didn't matter. In Tracy's mind, I'd humiliated her, and now she was getting revenge. Delete the email and tell them it was a mistake, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Too late. I sent it to HR directly too, and your boss's boss, and the client you're always talking about. I felt like I was going to throw up. Why would you do this? We're family. Exactly. And family should lift each other up, not make each other feel like garbage. She hung up, and I sat there in my hotel room, stunned. I immediately called Dana back and explained everything. She was sympathetic, but said the investigation would still have to happen. Company policy. The next week was hell. I had to meet with HR 3 times, showing them my actual social media accounts and explaining that the screenshots were fake. I had to sign affidavits and sit through uncomfortable meetings where people questioned my integrity. The client was furious until we proved the posts were fabricated. In the end, I kept my job, but I was put on probation for 3 months. The whole ordeal put a black mark on my record, just as I was being considered for a promotion. Meanwhile, Tracy and her husband were posting honeymoon photos from a beach resort that looked way more expensive than what my $13,000 should have covered. I later found out she'd only spent about $7,000 on the actual wedding and pocketed the rest for their honeymoon. I was hurt, angry, and confused. But mostly, I was worried about what Tracy might do next. If she was willing to try to get me fired over perceived slights, what else was she capable of? I didn't have to wait long to find out. About a month after the wedding, my parents called. They sounded upset. "Michelle, did you tell Tracy we're losing the house?" My mom asked, her voice shaking. "What? No. Are you losing the house?" "No. But Tracy came over yesterday saying you told her we were behind on mortgage payments and might get foreclosed on. She offered to let us move in with her and her husband." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Mom, I never said anything like that. Your mortgage is fine. Right?" "Yes. We're all paid up." "But why would Tracy make that up?" I had a pretty good idea why, but I didn't want to drag my parents into our fight. "I don't know. Maybe she misunderstood something I said." After I hung up, I got a text from Tracy. "Stay in your lane or things will get worse." She was trying to turn my family against me, make them think I was spreading lies. I decided to lay low for a while, hoping she'd cool off, but Tracy was just getting started. Over the next few months, she systematically tried to destroy my relationships with everyone in our family. She told our sister Mandy that I'd said her new girlfriend was only with her for her money. She's a hairdresser and definitely not rich. She convinced our brother Kevin that I thought his kids were out of control brats. I adore my nieces and nephews. She even told our youngest sister Amy that I'd made fun of her for dropping out of community college. One by one, my siblings started giving me the cold shoulder. Family dinners became tense affairs where everyone seemed to be whispering about me. I tried to defend myself, but it was my word against Tracy's, and she'd always been more charismatic than me. The worst part was, I still didn't fully understand why. Yes, I paid for her wedding, but that was months ago. Why was she still coming after me? I got my answer when my mom called me in tears one night. "Michelle, I don't know what's going on between you and Tracy, but it needs to stop. She just told us you've been stealing from Grandma's care fund." My grandmother had been in a nursing home for years. All the siblings contributed to a fund for her extra expenses. Things insurance didn't cover, like her favorite snacks, new pajamas, birthday gifts. I was in charge of the fund since I was good with money. "Mom, that's insane. I would never steal from Grandma. You can check the account anytime." Tracy showed us bank statements. "Michelle. Money being transferred to your personal account." My heart sank. "Those have to be fake. I'll send you the real statements right now." I hung up and immediately logged into the care fund account. What I saw made my stomach drop. There were transfers to an account with my name on it. An account I'd never seen before. Someone had set up a fake account in my name and was siphoning money from Grandma's fund. I called the bank in a panic and reported the fraud. They froze the account and started an investigation, but the damage was done. My family thought I was stealing from my own grandmother. I drove to my parents' house the next day with printouts of all the bank's fraud documentation. My mom let me in, but her eyes were red from crying. My dad wouldn't even look at me. "I can prove I didn't do this," I said, spreading the papers on their kitchen table. "Someone set up a fake account in my name. The bank is investigating it as fraud." My mom looked at the papers skeptically. "Who would do such a thing?" I took a deep breath. "I think it was Tracy." My dad finally looked up. "That's a serious accusation, Michelle." "I know, but she's been trying to turn everyone against me since her wedding. She tried to get me fired by sending fake screenshots to my boss. She told you guys I said you were losing the house. She's been lying to everyone about me." My parents exchanged looks. "But why would she do that?" my mom asked. "I think she resents me. For having a good job, for being able to pay for her wedding. She feels like I'm showing her up or something." My dad shook his head. "That doesn't sound like Tracy." "Call the bank yourself," I said, pushing their phone toward them. "Verify everything I just told you." My mom made the call, and I watched her face as the bank representative confirmed my story. There was a fraudulent account. It was being investigated. No, they couldn't confirm who set it up, but it definitely wasn't authorized by me. When she hung up, she looked confused and hurt. "I don't know what to think anymore." "Just promise me you'll keep an open mind," I said. "And maybe don't tell Tracy about this conversation yet. If she is behind this, I don't want her to know we're onto her." They reluctantly agreed, and I left feeling slightly better. At least they were willing to consider that I might be telling the truth. The next day, I got a call from the nursing home. Grandma was upset because she hadn't received her weekly visit from me. I was confused. I always visited on Sundays, and it was only Thursday. "Someone called and said you wouldn't be coming anymore," the nurse explained. "They said to tell her you were too busy with your new boyfriend." I didn't have a boyfriend, and I would never skip my visits with Grandma. "Who called and said that?" "A woman. She said she was your sister." I was furious now. Tracy was messing with Grandma, a 92-year-old woman with dementia who looked forward to my visits all week. This was crossing a line. I drove straight to the nursing home and spent the afternoon with Grandma, assuring her I wasn't abandoning her. She seemed relieved but confused. The damage control was exhausting. On my way home, I got a call from an unknown number. It was her husband, Tom. "Michelle, I need to talk to you," he said. His voice hushed like he was hiding from someone. "About Tracy?" We agreed to meet at a coffee shop halfway between our homes. When I got there, Tom was already waiting, fidgeting with a napkin and looking nervous. "I think Tracy needs help," he said as soon as I sat down. "She's obsessed with you. She stays up late making these plans to take you down. She has a whole folder on her laptop labeled Michelle's downfall." I felt a chill run through me. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because it's not right." He hesitated. "And she's starting to scare me. Last night she was talking about how she might get access to your apartment to plant substances. I don't know what, but it sounded illicit." My mind raced. Tracy had a key to my apartment. I'd given it to her years ago for emergencies and never asked for it back. "Has she always been like this?" I asked. Tom shook his head. "No. I mean, she's always been competitive with you, but this is different. It started around the time you offered to pay for our wedding. At first, she was grateful, but then she started saying you only did it to show off, that you were trying to emasculate her." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "I was just trying to help." "I know that. Deep down, I think Tracy knows it too, but she's convinced herself you're out to get her somehow. He looked down at his coffee. There's something else. The money for the wedding. Tracy only spent about half of it on the actual wedding. I figured that out. He looked surprised. No, not the honeymoon. We used my parents' timeshare. The rest of the money went to gambling debts. Tracy has a problem. She's been hiding it from everyone, even me until recently. This was a twist I hadn't expected. Gambling debts? How bad is it? Bad enough that she was desperate for that wedding money. And now she's desperate again. That's why she's been taking money from your grandmother's account. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. You know about that? He nodded, tears in his eyes. I found the fake bank statements on her computer. She's been planning this for months. Setting up that account in your name. I confronted her about it last night and she didn't take it well. I noticed for the first time that he was wearing long sleeves despite the warm weather. Tom, did she hurt you? He pulled up his sleeve slightly, revealing a bruise on his wrist. She grabbed me, said I needed to mind my own business. That's when I knew I had to talk to you. I was speechless. This was way worse than I thought. Tracy wasn't just being petty, she was dangerous. You need to get somewhere safe, I said. Do your parents live nearby? He nodded. I'm staying with them now. Told Tracy I needed some space. Good. Stay there. And Tom, thank you for telling me all this. I know it couldn't have been easy. He gave me a sad smile. Tracy wasn't always like this. I keep hoping the woman I fell in love with is still in there somewhere. After Tom left, I sat in that coffee shop for a long time, trying to process everything. My sister was stealing from our grandmother and framing me for it. She was turning our family against me out of some twisted resentment, and now she was potentially violent. I needed evidence, something concrete to show my family what was really going on, and I needed to protect myself from whatever Tracy was planning next. First things first, I called a locksmith and had my locks changed that same day. Then I installed a basic security camera system that would alert me if anyone entered my apartment. Next, I contacted the bank handling Grandma's care fund. They confirmed they were investigating the fraudulent account but said it could take weeks to determine who set it up. I couldn't wait that long. I remembered that Tracy had used her personal email to send those fake screenshots to my boss. If she'd been sloppy once, maybe she'd been sloppy again. I asked the bank if they had any contact information associated with the fraudulent account. They couldn't give me details due to the ongoing investigation, but the customer service rep hesitated just long enough when I mentioned Tracy's email address that I knew I was on the right track. Now I needed to warn my family without sounding like I was just trying to get back at Tracy. I decided to start with Tina, the sister who'd called Tracy out at the wedding. She'd always been the most level-headed of my siblings. I invited her to lunch and laid out everything, the fake screenshots sent to my work, the lies Tracy had been telling everyone, what Tom had told me about the gambling and the stolen money. Tina listened without interrupting, her expression growing more concerned with each revelation. When I finished, she sat back inside. I knew something was off with her lately, but this is... Wow. You believe me? I asked, relieved. Of course I do. Tracy's always been jealous of you, Michelle. Even when we were kids, remember how she used to accidentally spill stuff on your homework? Or tell mom and dad you'd done something wrong when you hadn't? I hadn't connected those childhood incidents to what was happening now, but Tina was right. This pattern had been there all along. The question is, Tina continued, what do we do about it? If we confront her directly, she'll just deny everything. I need proof, I said. Something undeniable that shows she's behind all this. Tina thought for a moment. What about her laptop? Tom said that's where she keeps all her plans, right? If we could get access to that. I'm not breaking into her house, Tina. No. But Tom might be willing to help. If he's already left her and is worried about what she might do next, maybe he'd let us see what's on that computer. It was worth a shot. I called Tom that evening and explained our idea. He was hesitant at first. Technically, the laptop belonged to both of them since they bought it with combined funds, but it felt like an invasion of privacy. I understand, I said. But she's stolen from our grandmother, tried to get me fired, and is turning our family against each other. We need to stop her before she does something even worse. Tom finally agreed. Tracy was working late the next day, so he'd go back to their apartment to get some more of his things and take the laptop while he was there. The plan worked. Tom texted me the next evening saying he had the laptop and would meet us at Tina's apartment. When I arrived, Tom was already there, looking nervous but determined. I haven't opened it yet, he said. It's password protected but I know what she uses. He typed in the password, and we were in. The desktop was cluttered with icons, but sure enough, there was a folder labeled Michelle. Tom clicked on it, and dozens of files appeared. Screenshots of my social media, copies of emails I'd sent, photos of me that had been edited to look like I was with prostitutes or doing substances. Jesus, Tina whispered. She's been planning this for months. We found the fake bank statements for Grandma's care fund, templates for more fake screenshots to send to my work, and even a document titled Phase 3 that outlined plans to plant substances in my apartment and then call an anonymous tip to the police. It was all there. Undeniable evidence that Tracy had been systematically trying to destroy my life. We saved copies of everything to a flash drive. Then Tom closed the laptop. What now? He asked. Now we call a family meeting, I said. I texted everyone in the family except Tracy, asking them to meet at my parents' house the next day. I told them it was important, a family emergency. Most of them agreed right away, though a few seemed hesitant. I couldn't blame them after all the lies Tracy had been spreading about me. The next evening, I showed up at my parents' place with Tina and Tom. My stomach was in knots. I'd barely slept the night before, going over and over what I was going to say. How do you tell your family that one of their own has been systematically trying to ruin your life? When we walked in, everyone was already there. My parents, my other siblings, even my grandma who my mom had picked up from the nursing home for the occasion. They all looked confused and worried. My brother Kevin immediately asked where Tracy was. That's part of why we're here, I said, setting up my laptop on the coffee table. There's something you all need to see. I connected the flash drive and pulled up the files we'd copied from Tracy's computer. For the next 20 minutes, the room was dead silent except for occasional gasps as I showed them everything. The fake bank statements, the doctored photos, the plans to plant substances in my apartment, all of it. When I finished, my mom had tears streaming down her face. My dad looked like he'd aged 10 years in the last half hour. My siblings were in various states of shock and disbelief. This can't be real, my brother Kevin said, shaking his head. Tracy wouldn't do this. Tom spoke up then. It's real. I found all of this on our laptop. She's been obsessed with taking Michelle down for months. But why? My mom asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I explained what Tom had told me about Tracy's gambling problem, how she'd used most of the wedding money to pay off debts, and how she'd grown increasingly resentful of me. She sees Michelle as a threat, Tom said. Like Michelle's success somehow makes her a failure. My grandma, who had been quietly listening, suddenly spoke up. She always was a jealous girl. Even as a little thing, she'd throw fits if anyone got more attention than her. Just as we were discussing what to do next, the front door slammed open. Tracy stood there, her face twisted with rage. What the hell is this? A family meeting without me? The room went silent. Tom visibly flinched and moved closer to Tina. I stood up, positioning myself between Tracy and the rest of the family. We know what you've been doing, Tracy, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. We've seen everything on your laptop. Her eyes darted to Tom, then to the computer on the coffee table. For a split second, I saw panic flash across her face before it was replaced with anger. You went through my private files? That's illegal. I could have you arrested. For what? I asked. Finding out you've been stealing from Grandma? Or that you tried to get me fired? Or maybe for your plans to plant substances in my apartment? Tracy's face went pale. She looked around the room, seeming to realize for the first time that everyone was staring at her with horror and disappointment. You don't understand, she said, her voice suddenly desperate. Michelle has everything handed to her. Everything comes easy to her. The rest of us have to struggle, but not Golden Girl Michelle. My dad stood up then. That's not true, Tracy. Nothing was handed to Michelle. She worked for everything she has, just like the rest of you could have. Oh, so now you're taking her side? Tracy shouted. Of course you are, you always do. This isn't about sides, my mom said, her voice stronger now. This is about what you've done. You stole from your own grandmother. You tried to destroy your sister's reputation. You lied to all of us. Tracy looked around wildly, like a cornered animal. Tom put you up to this, didn't he? He's been trying to turn everyone against me. Tom shook his head, tears in his eyes. No, Tracy. You did this to yourself. For a moment, I thought Tracy might lunge at him. I tensed, ready to intervene. But instead, she turned and stormed out, slamming the door so hard a family photo fell off the wall and shattered. The room was silent for a long moment after she left. Then my dad picked up his phone. I'm calling the police. What she did with that bank account is fraud. Wait, I said, surprising myself. Let's think about this first. Everyone looked at me like I'd lost my mind. Michelle, she tried to ruin your life, Tina said. She was going to plant substances in your apartment. I know, and I'm not saying there shouldn't be consequences, but maybe there's a better way to handle this than getting her arrested. My mom gave me a sad smile. Always trying to fix everything, aren't you? We spent the next hour discussing options. In the end, we decided on a two-part approach. First, Tracy would need to get help for her gambling addiction. Real help, not just promises to do better. Second, she'd have to make restitution for the money she stole from Grandma's care fund. My dad called Tracy and laid out these terms. If she agreed, we wouldn't go to the police. If she refused, we'd file charges for fraud. Tracy didn't call back that night or the next day. We were starting to think she'd skip town when Tom got a text from her 3 days later, asking to meet at a diner near their apartment. I went with Tom, partly for moral support and partly because I wasn't sure Tracy wouldn't try something stupid. We found her sitting in a booth at the back, looking like she hadn't slept in days. Her eyes were bloodshot, and she had a haggard appearance. I fucked up, she said as soon as we sat down. No hello, no small talk. I fucked up bad. Tom just nodded, keeping his distance on the far side of the booth. I don't even know when it started, Tracy continued. The gambling, I mean. Just small bets at first, then bigger ones to try to win back what I lost. Before I knew it, I was in deep. And blaming me somehow made it easier? I asked. She looked down at her coffee. I guess. You were always the successful one. The smart one. I was just me. Average at everything. When you offered to pay for the wedding, part of me was grateful. But another part felt, I don't know, humiliated? Like I couldn't even provide that for Tom. So you decided to take me down a few notches? It wasn't that calculated at first. I was just angry. But then it kind of snowballed. We talked for nearly 2 hours. Tracy admitted to everything. The fake bank account. The lies she told the family about me. All of it. She seemed genuinely remorseful, though I wasn't sure how much of that was because she got caught. In the end, she agreed to Dad's terms. She'd pay back every cent she took from Grandma's fund, plus interest. She'd also enroll in a gambling addiction program and see a therapist for her anger issues. And you'll tell everyone in the family the truth, I added. All of it. No more lies. She nodded, looking miserable but resigned. The next few months were rough. Tracy moved back in with our parents temporarily after Tom filed for separation. She got a second job to pay back the money she stole. Every Sunday, she'd come with me to visit Grandma and apologize again, even though her dementia meant she often didn't remember what Tracy was apologizing for. My relationship with Tracy was strained, to put it mildly. I wasn't sure I'd ever fully trust her again, but I tried to remember what Tom had said, that the Tracy who did all those things wasn't the real Tracy. That somewhere inside was still the sister I'd grown up with. 6 months after our family meeting, Tracy invited me to grab a beer after work. I was hesitant, but decided to go. We met at this dive bar halfway between our jobs, the kind of place with peanut shells on the floor and sports memorabilia covering every inch of the walls. I've been seeing a therapist, Tracy said after we got our drinks. Turns out I've got some issues. I nearly choked on my beer trying not to laugh. You don't say. She cracked a small smile. Yeah. Well, apparently I've been competing with you my whole life and losing, at least in my own head. The therapist says I've got this thing called an inferiority complex. Sounds serious, I said, keeping my tone light. It kind of is. Makes you do crazy shit. Like, try to ruin your sister's life because you're jealous of her. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just nodded. Anyway, Tracy continued. I'm working on it. And I wanted to tell you that I'm sorry. Really sorry. What I did was messed up on so many levels. Yeah, it was, I agreed. But I appreciate the apology. We sat in awkward silence for a minute before Tracy spoke again. The thing is, I always thought you had it easy. That everything just came naturally to you. But Tom made me realize something. You worked your butt off for everything you have. Nothing was handed to you. I shrugged. I just did what needed to be done. That's just it. You always do what needs to be done, for everyone, including me. She looked me in the eye for the first time that night. I didn't deserve that wedding money, or any of the other times you've helped me out. Maybe not, I said. But that's what family does. We help each other. Tracy nodded slowly. I'm trying to be better. To actually deserve having you as a sister. It wasn't an instant fix. Trust takes a long time to rebuild once it's broken. But that conversation was a start.